In a time when expendable money is harder and harder to find, it's refreshing to see a brand offering components that not only cost less, but are guaranteed to last longer than essentially what some companies are just selling a single derailleur for. So today we're gonna be doing a long-term review on the Shimano XT LinkGlide drivetrain, which is impressively affordable and rather durable. So let's dive in. So before we get into the review, we are gonna give quite a bit of praise to this group set, and I just wanna come out in front and say that we were not paid to make this video. It was not a request of Shimano. They sent us a group set, which we are hopefully gonna be keeping. We also did get another bike, this Fazari Timp Peak, which has the drivetrain already installed on it. So we've got a lot of time on two different group sets of the LinkGlide system. And I know we test a lot of really expensive bikes. That's what lots of brands like to send our way. But, you know, as mountain bikers who are always looking for ways to save money and make our dollars last so we can ride more, affordable components are definitely what we are passionate about, and the LinkGlide drivetrain is that. So right here I have a HyperGlide cassette. This is what we pulled off our Pivot Shuttle LT, which you may have noticed we've been riding a ton this year. This is the LinkGlide cassette that we replaced it with. This particular bike, the Shuttle LT, was in everything from our full power e-bike shootout at the beginning of the year all the way through our e-bike destination tour, which we did, and we'll link down below. But essentially why I'm bringing all this up is we put a lot of miles on this bike, and the Fazari Timp Peak, which also won an award in our e-bike shootout and has been ridden a lot by our whole staff this year. Both have seen quite a bit of miles, so we've got a lot of experience abusing, neglecting, and testing this group. So let's get into the pros and the cons, because there are a couple potential negative performance traits which could be issues for some of the riders out there, but probably not too big of a deal. So first off, let's get into the differences. Weight will be an issue for sure. We just weighed the cassette. It's 618 grams for the 11-speed version. The LinkGlide system comes in 10 or 11. We replaced it with a 12-speed drivetrain that was on the Shuttle LT. Wasn't a huge issue, especially on an e-bike where you've got, you know, a drive unit assisting you. We found 11-speed to be more than plenty of range. There are a few different cassettes available for 10 and 11 speed, so you can kind of change your gear range and price points, right? We've done the XT group here. They do have a more affordable Deore level group, so if you want to save even more money, you can do so. So moving into the cassette, we'll talk about this first because that is where most of the magic happens in the LinkGlide system. Something to note is that the three smallest gears on the cassette are replaceable because those are the ones that wear out the quickest traditionally. So you can, you know, relatively affordably just replace the most worn out rings, further offering savings and user friendliness. So getting into this cassette here, it has completely been redesigned from HyperGlide and HyperGlide Plus, which have been out on the market. And HyperGlide stuff is designed with performance, speed as the number one, right? Yes, it's lighter, but fast, instant shifts are gonna be the main goal of HyperGlide. LinkGlide has got thicker, taller, chamfered teeth profiles, and essentially there's a lot of different ingredients that work into this recipe, but more chain wrap, more chain engagement, and deeper, I guess we'll say, penetration into the chain, you know, links is going to mean smoother performance, especially under extreme load. So if you are an out of the saddle pedaler who likes to just put down massive power for technical steep climbs, an e-bike rider, you're gonna have less skipping and shifting and moving because of the profile, right? It's a thicker base that tapers up, taller teeth profile. Also, the shift gates and ramps are completely redesigned. And when you look closely at the two profiles of HyperGlide and LinkGlide, you will definitely see, you know, essentially you're looking at stuff that looks like a full chain link, right? Kind of impressed in here as a guide or a ramp up. And those help the chain go up or down the cassette. Another really interesting thing is that shift shock, which is essentially what happens when you're shifting into harder gears, and you can feel sort of like that clunk and the chain drops down. What happens on a HyperGlide cassette is essentially it's designed to get that chain off that cog as fast as possible, so people who are on the gas pedaling really hard can get into that harder gear, and you can feel that shift shock through the pedals. And if you watch on video, you'll see that chain drop down and clunk into the next cog. Whereas on LinkGlide, it slowly shifts the first link and then releases all the links following in a much smoother way. Again, with a claimed 3 times increase in durability and longevity. Chain wear, which also plays back into cassette wear, is something that Shimano is really conscious of. And if you look at this cassette, which did not have all that many miles on it, it might have had 100 miles on it, and you can see there are some very big gouges in that chain, and that's not from rocks or crashing, that is from the chain. And if you know bike chains, they're kind of strong and durable in some ways and extremely weak in other ways. So the fact that a bicycle chain is gouging that sort of hardened material on a cassette, you can only imagine what the chain looked like and how much that shortened the lifespan. Whereas if you look at both of our LinkGlide cassettes, there's no gouging, there's no missing material, which also means that our chains are much happier on this bike. And again, less broken chains, less stretching, twisting of chains, and if your chains are tight and they're not misaligned or screwed up, it's also not going to be wearing on the teeth of your cassette nearly as much. So you will still have to take care, check your chain, make sure that it's not stretched, getting worn, because you'll want to replace those chains, which are more affordable and easier to replace on this bike, just because they don't cost quite as much. But if you are on top of that chain maintenance, this cassette will last you a lot longer, and the fact that it's quite a bit cheaper only makes it even more appetizing. Speaking of chains, you do not have to run a Shimano or a specific chain. So if you want to run a KMC or a colored chain from another reputable brand, okay, I wouldn't Alibaba something here, but if you can get something from another brand that you like, any 10 or 11 speed chain will work on this cassette. So again, just furthering your ability to run what you like. Pricing on the cassette, again, Deore or Deore XT, pricing is roughly $67 to about $130, depending on where you find it, how much inventory a dealer might have. 10 speed, 11 speed, all those things will kind of vary into things, right? But $130 for an XT cassette is not too bad at all. Next, we'll move into the derailleur. Has a lot of the same features that you would expect from a Shimano, especially an XT product on our test bikes. So you've got the Shadow Plus, solid, dependable, reliable shifting. Derailleurs are about $120 for the XT. You move into the shifter, they've got either an I-spec or a clamp, traditional kind of bar clamp style. You're looking at $120 for a shifter. We really thought the shifter did well, has nice ergonomic paddles, a little bit of kind of texture on them for grip with or without gloves in wet, sloppy, or hot, dry, and dusty conditions. So no complaints really. And then chain we kind of talked about there, about $35. So all said and done, $350, $360 for an entire group, right? And we're talking like there's cassettes that cost more than that, and derailleurs that cost twice that price. And they're not going to last nearly as long and be a lot more expensive to replace. So that obviously is a major upside. Downsides, yes, there are some. Shift speed. The way that these shift guides and the shift gates are laid out on the cassette, the spacing between them, the way in which they work and guide the chain into the next cog set is slower. So what that means with the increased durability, the less likelihood of twisting chain links, is that it's not as instant and precise. Under load when you're climbing, it still does a pretty good job in terms of speed, I should say. It never has misshifted. We've never had an issue with skipping. Like, it will always go. But I would say that you notice it more when you're sprinting. Maybe if you're coming out of a corner and you really want to drop gears fast, you kind of have to wait until it finds that next shift gate and then it drops down. I think pro athletes, you know, higher end riders where, you know, a millisecond counts and they can notice that difference in getting up to speed quickly and into certain gears fast when they need it, are also probably not the riders that are paying for their drivetrain components, but it's something that they're gonna notice. You know, it was something we noticed, absolutely. You know, it is slower. Like, the time from you pushing that shift lever to where it finds that ramp or that guide and moves up slowly into the next gear, it took a second or two to get used to. We pretty quickly adapted. It never made us miss a line. It never had us, you know, fail a hill climb challenge, not get enough speed to hit a jump out of a corner. Like, that was never an issue. But it took a second. You're like, oh, I pushed that button, oh, there it went. You know, just as you were starting to think maybe it's not gonna shift, it would. Personally, you know, if I was gonna be spending my money, it was not a long enough delay to where it would prevent me from making this purchase or suggesting it to people. I do think it's worth mentioning because it is noticeable, and then there might be some riders who just really want that instant, precise performance and shift, and it might not be for you. But I would imagine, especially in today's age where, you know, stuff costs so much, life is expensive, and, you know, we're not readily wanting to spend, you know, 150 to 300 bucks to just replace cassettes and chains all the time. Man, it's just maybe not the best business economics to make something that costs less and takes longer to wear out, but props to Shimano for doing it. It's awesome, right? From a, you know, a green standpoint, right? You're not wasting as much material. You're not having to manufacture, ship as much material. So, I mean, all around, I'm really stoked on LinkGlide. I think it's at a great price point. I think the performance is solid and well within like an adjustable realm for aggressive, performance-minded riders down to beginners. That is the LinkGlide in a big nutshell. Please ask any questions you might have down below, but overall, I think this is a system that we would highly suggest you guys take a look at if you are not looking for the absolute pinnacle of performance and shift speed, and you're willing to save some money in the sake of, you know, a couple 100 grams of weight and a little bit slower shifting. Thank you guys for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We look forward to seeing you out on the trails.